Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap-up presented by the Gokhstein News Network. I am your host, Landy, and today is August 15th, 2025. We're going to start out by looking at Bitcoin, and you can see that Bitcoin did make a new all-time high, and that was an interesting day because there was a sell-off shortly thereafter. But you might remember on Wednesday, I said above $123,000. I'm looking for essentially 123 to 125. Excuse me, I've been talking all day. And we did hit 124,500 before selling off quite aggressively back to the basis band. And we're going to get right into it and take a look at what this price action means and some areas of interest to pay attention to going forward for both the bulls and the bears. And we're going to do that by turning on the local support and resistance areas of interest. And we can see that, Bitcoin has now breached back below the 118,000 or 117.8 here on spot and did close just above the basis band here. And you might remember that I called out the basis band as the next big area and just below 118 essentially. If we did see the area that the bulls needed to hold to stay up there, which was the 121 to 120 area up here, this green zone with the two yellow horizontals here. So what Bitcoin did in the lower term timeframes was actually sit right on top of that zone for a bit here on a close open and then immediately move down to the next area. So this was this candle was a warning. And in fact, there's a few reasons why this candle was a warning and why I've been calling out $125,000 as kind of the area of interest. And I needed to see, you may recall on Wednesday, I needed to see daily closes above 125. And yes, lower term time frame closes could push things, but for a sustainable move up on expansion, I wanted to see daily closes continue above $125,000. We didn't get that. That's where I would have been looking for 128 to 130. But the 4-hour did paint a pretty ugly 4-hour candle, even though it was a green candle or a bullish candle here. It was an inverted doji. And the next candle did put in the high. And once seeing that in lower term timeframes, there was a big divergence here. And in order to avoid that divergence, we would have needed to see closes above 125 or so. And we did not see that. And in fact, even the 15-minute was kind of warning as we were coming into some of the 4-hour closures. We saw in the 15-minute that we had a lower high, and as soon as this higher low was taken out, the move right back to the zone of interest here around $121,000. We saw this downtrend, the consolidation, then the expansion into it, a little bit of mean reversion back to the basis, and then straight down through. Now, of course, this was accelerated by a few different things. Many are attributing this to, comments by Besant, but realistically, it was PPI data really spooked the market. And then, you can add on the Besant comments to that, but it was really right around the PPI data because this was at 5:30 a.m. my time, which was 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. And, it's kind of a combination of those factors. We saw this sell off through the support and then, kind of hang out about that 118 or 117.8 to 118 area, try to make a push back to the top side and failed to do so. Now it's back in this very important zone between, right around 118 to this 115.7. So on the daily, this is the area that the bulls need to hold, right? This is the original zone of interest. Let me go ahead and straighten a few things out here on the chart. This was the main zone of interest when Bitcoin made its first brand new all-time high post-expansion there at $123,000 or just slightly above. We saw the consolidation after the high was put in. We did not see any closes below the 115.7 low of the candle that marked that particular high. And then we did get some swings outside of it, but really realistically it was, closes below 115.7. We saw that move down to $112,000. So it's still the same area to the downside. Bulls need to defend this 115.7 on closes. Swings are fine. And just gauge on lower term timeframes for price direction, momentum, and all that stuff. Obviously, with whatever trend is happening there, if we did see something like that. But Bitcoin is still in the bullish half of the bands. So that is still a good thing for the bulls. If they can push back above that 117.8 to 118, then I would look for, a move in general to come up around the Friday high. Of course, it's still Friday for me, but the Saturday candle is open. And that is right where the upper first standard deviation is, right around 119.5. Anywhere above there, I'd look for 120 to 121 to get tested. And then we do have an intermediate level above there where the upper second is, right around the high here. If we did see over the weekend, for instance, the bulls start to push back through and start to get through 121, this upper second is going to be right around where this wick high is, right around 122.5 to almost 123 there by 122.680. Anywhere above there, then it's a run right back to 123 to, I would still say 125. We see the upper third is right there. I will say that if we see lower term timeframes drop out the lows here at 115.7, be aware of the swing low at 114.750. We do have the lower first right around there. Anywhere below there, and you can see lower second is right there at $112,000. And we would start to see expansion anywhere below the basis and pulling back and closing away from it. We will see the lower second start to move into this zone and lower third start to hit that 109. So that's kind of the lay of the land right now. And we've got a few interesting things here that, many are calling out the bearish divergence right between the highs. But realistically, in this current trend, which is still an uptrend, there is no bearish divergence. So at this particular moment, it's corrective at best, but it could still go for more. Provided that it, if it does start to lose that 115.7, 116 area. We can see that momentum has turned against price right now. It can always get a bullish reset. Where would it bullishly reset? It would be close over close, not a single candle, but a close over close above 121.450. So essentially right back into the top side of this green zone. 121 would be kind of the area that you need to pay attention to. If we saw closes back above there, there is a high likelihood that we could see momentum turn, but we would rather need to see the next candle close above there as well. So, or close to this area up here around 120 to 121, as we would get an adjustment on the daily for that particular projection for an area of interest or a zone, not a zone, but where the zone is confluent with the stochastic momentum indicator read. And typically what will happen is you'll see if it does close above the pivot, the next candle will be the low, essentially is the pivot at that point. And of course, setting a low would be anywhere above right around the Friday high here. We would see a low set, and that's at that 119.340. And we would see a low set, but still work to do for the bulls if they want to move back into that zone, 120 to 121. All right, let's take a look at the weekly. We'll get rid of this for the moment and take a look at the weekly chart. And then we'll go take a look at Ethereum, Solana, and I've been getting a lot of requests for SWI. All right, so bulls want to see closes come in above the upper first. In fact, closing anywhere close to it, we would see a close open like we saw in about 2 weeks ago, where we saw the close was essentially right on it, but the upper first is now pulling up and will continue to do so as the basis band rises. So you do want to see closes above it. And to be quite frank with you, you want to see closes above 119.5, still ugly candle. But to preserve the volatility zones of interest, we would want to see rather the upper first closed above, make that upper second available at around $128,000. Likely going to start flattening out, maybe move a little bit more towards that 130, but likely going to start flattening out. We do have the basis band down here at just below $105,000. I would expect to see this somewhere around 106 to 108 next closure, and likely, provided Bitcoin closes above the basis this weekend, we'll likely see that lower first above the or right around somewhere around probably $95,000, $96,000, but starting to approach this last higher low on the weekly. But so far, this is just consolidation at the highs, two bigger rejections. We'll kind of see how things go over the course of the rest of this month. But next week's going to be pretty important to see where things kind of fall in this particular chart, because what we would see here is if a high was put in, no, it would avoid bearish divergence actually, even if a high was put in here. So looking more like consolidation than not, even if it did. And realistically, weekly closes below about $112,000, this 111.9, or that $112,000 zone. If we start pushing in there, we would see the high marked off of this higher high swing, lower high close, and it would start to look like consolidation again. And then we just gauge it from there. And you don't really want to see, it's about equal high closes, but you don't really want to see higher high swing with lower high closes, because then we run into possible scenarios like this: higher high swing, lower high close, consolidation, move down to support, get bought up initially, and then work its way down. But we'll just have to gauge it day by day, week by week, as we come into the end of the month and the September open. All right, let's go ahead and go to the daily again and take a look at Ethereum real quick here. ETH did hit my zone. So it hit the zone perfectly to the downside on the after putting in the higher high here. Still in an expansive posture, so it actually looks better than Bitcoin here on the daily. Now, granted, Bitcoin's just lost a few important levels. It's still in higher low position if the bulls can hold. But we did see, essentially we need to see closes above the upper second that can also get above the prior all-time high at 48.67. And the upper second is 4,800. So 4,800 is kind of the ceiling to that previous high. Closes above there, kickoff expansion. We can start looking at 5,000, 5,500, so on and so forth. And then eventually that 6K to 6,500 if it does do so. But this is a big area of interest right around this upper first on the daily. This is a big weekly zone at right around 4,400. If that is lost, there is some intraday areas to pay attention to, right? So a dip into 4,400, not too concerning, but we would want to see around the 42 and a half hold up. I'm sorry, 42,250. Sorry. Because if it loses that, it loses the higher low swing down here at 41.65, and then it would look like it wants to go back for 4K to that right around where the basis band to possibly the bottom side of the zone at 39.30. But got to give it a chance. This is nice expansion. Typically, when you're moving from compression to expansion, the band levels confluent typically with the areas of support and resistance, and even major fibs like this 888. Those are going to be areas of interest for, in this case, potential, bids coming in. And then it's just gauging if they can turn some of the lower term timeframes around and start making runs back to the overhead resistance and reclaiming it. But, it actually doesn't look bad at all. And the weekly looks fine as well. There's plenty of room between the last high to last swing high or low now. But realistically, 39.30 is kind of the line in the sand for that. Otherwise, it's testing down to, essentially 3,900 and endanger some of this daily zone of interest that we saw in here before the move up. But right where the 786 is here at right around 3,500 on a close, and then swing at 3,350. That's the big area to pay attention to on the weekly, and closing above, 4,400 is going to look really good for continuation on the weekly. But you got to pay attention to Bitcoin, even if you're an Ethereum bull and you think that it's all alt season right now. If Bitcoin has a violent move to the downside, it's going to take ETH with it, and it's just a matter of where things start to close. So let's go back to the daily. Let's go take a look at Solana. Solana perfectly tagged our 209 to 210 area up here on the daily. And as long as it's trading above 180, it's looking good. Even down to the 177 area. If it drops it, then we're looking down to right around 165, 166 again. And then this is a wider area of interest all the way down to 160. And the bulls want to hold that. And in fact, it's going to look kind of nasty for the bulls if right around 173 is dropped. So between this area between 173 and that 166 area by the lower first, right up against the support there, it's kind of line in the sand. I mean, preferably you want to see Solana holding above 180. Try to put in another higher low somewhere around here without endangering this last higher low on a swing basis, especially. So let's go ahead and take a look at the weekly real quick here. Weekly's ugly. This is an ugly weekly. I mean, they're all kind of, outside of Ethereum, they all kind of look ugly, to be honest with you. Need to see weekly closes above 190. That would look good for the local area here to go test 200, then back up to 210. Need to see closes above 210 to eventually start targeting that 250, 260 up top. So let's go ahead and take a look at SWI. All right. Higher high with the higher low very close. So this is a little bit of a mess. This is a chart that I use as a reference for actively trading. We did see the close above 430, but failure for continuation on the daily that led into the weekly coming back to this 340 area. And for the weekly here, 340 anywhere below there on dailies going to start to look like this basis band and this last higher low swing at $3.25 to 26.5 cents here would start to be in danger. So need to see that hold up to the downside. Need to see recoveries of $4 and then go back up and take out 430 to start making a run for 450 and above, into the deeper $4 area towards $5. The daily is, so the daily has been trying to recover off of its zone sweep down here, but running its head right into resistance here. So just be cautious. Same areas, $4 needs to be reclaimed to go test 430 and above. This is a bit of a range look, and breakouts above there would, we want to see closes above there that can get above 430. That would be expansion up to the next big areas. 450, 475, $5 up here. To the downside, we start seeing even 350 breakdown, probably going in for a retest of 340 and below, down to the 330 area. Anywhere below there, retest and $3 on expansion is my take on this. And that's pretty much it. So let's recap with Bitcoin real quick. You want to see Bitcoin hold the zone. That zone is 115.7 to around 118. And that's going to be on a closing basis. So that would look good. I will tell you that, swings down below, they're fine as long as we're closing back above this 115.7 area. You might be able to get away with taking the 114.750 on closes, but it's really going to start to endanger this last higher low on a swing and close where we kind of elevated up. And of course this happened over last weekend. So, or the weekend prior rather. No, this was last weekend. Yeah, it was last weekend. So, right. Yeah. Yeah, it was last weekend. My days are getting all mixed up. They're all blending together. Got a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, that's really, you want to see the bulls hold this zone. I'd be cautious on closes below 115.7. And in this case, is there anything for the bulls here on the 4 hour over the weekend if it's like lower volume and things kind of chill out? 4 hour could, it's getting some extremes for stoke momentum here, but it's still a downtrend. Nothing from here right now. I mean, closing above, essentially 118, start to look good. That'd be back above the lower first. And then they got to take out the high here from the Friday candle at that 119.340 to even go and have a chance to test 120 to 121. 12 hour probably doesn't offer up too much right now. Momentum's going to be down, but if we do see things kind of settle down in the zone here, be prepared to look at this 12 hour. If it starts to put in a low, then things could get exciting again back to the upside. It's just how sustainable. I would be looking for the 4-hour interplay with the 12-hour and see how things kind of turn out throughout the rest of this weekend. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care. Talk to you on Monday.